Something is going very wrong for Bugatti, and it's starting to scare off the exact people they rely on most. Wealthy buyers are now second-guessing multi-million-dollar purchases, not because of the cars, but because of what happens after they buy them. After seeing how Bugatti handled situations with Matt Armstrong and McCann refusing parts,
we later found that the Bugatti, it was impossible to buy parts directly from them.
On that chassis number of vehicle, they will not supply any component.
Delaying support, one brutal question is now circulating. Why spend $3 to $5 million on a hypercar if the company won't back you when things go wrong? This isn't just controversy anymore. It's a serious threat to Bugatti's reputation, and it's already impacting the luxury car market. Let's break down what's happening, why it's backfiring, and what it means for the future of hypercar ownership. Tension is quietly building in the hypercar world, and it's no longer just about speed, engineering, or prestige, it's about trust. For years, owning a Bugatti represented the absolute peak of automotive luxury, a symbol that went beyond wealth into exclusivity and legacy. But that perception is starting to shift, not because of the cars themselves, but because of what happens after the purchase. Recent high-profile cases involving creators like Matt Armstrong and McCann have pulled back the curtain on a side of ownership most buyers rarely see. And it's raising a question that cuts deeper than any performance stat. What exactly are you paying for when you spend millions on a car that may not support you when something goes wrong? At the center of this growing concern is Bugatti's approach to control. The brand has built its identity around precision, exclusivity, and tightly managed systems, but that same control is now being interpreted as restriction. Armstrong's documented struggle to source parts for a legitimate rebuild, paired with McCann's experience of delayed responses and rigid policies, has created a narrative that extends far beyond two isolated incidents. These moments have become case studies widely viewed, permanently documented, and impossible to ignore. For potential buyers researching their next hypercar, these aren't just stories. They are signals. Signals that suggest ownership may come with limitations that weren't part of the original dream. What makes this situation more critical is the nature of the buyers themselves. Hypercar customers are not impulsive. They are calculated, informed, and deeply connected within exclusive networks. Before committing to a multi-million-dollar purchase, they examine every angle: performance, resale value, brand reputation, and most importantly, long-term support. And right now, the answers they're finding are raising doubts. Questions about repair freedom, access to parts, and the ability to choose independent specialists are becoming central to the decision-making process. Because while the purchase price may be manageable for this level of buyer, uncertainty after the sale is not. No one wants to feel locked into a system where control remains with the manufacturer long after ownership has supposedly transferred. This is where the tension escalates. The hypercar market is no longer defined by Bugatti alone. Competitors like Koenigsegg and Pagani offer similar levels of performance and exclusivity, but with a noticeably different relationship to their customers, one that emphasizes collaboration rather than control. In comparison, Bugatti's model begins to feel less like a luxury experience and more like a restrictive contract. And when buyers are faced with two equally extraordinary machines, the deciding factor often becomes not what the car can do, but how the brand treats you once you own it. These of ownership. And that transparency carries weight, especially when the audience includes the very people capable of purchasing these vehicles. What was once controlled messaging is now an open conversation, and Bugatti no longer dictates the terms of that conversation alone. From a business perspective, the stakes are significant. Bugatti operates on a model of low volume and high margins, meaning each sale carries substantial importance. Even a slight decline in buyer confidence can translate into major financial consequences, not just in new sales, but in the broader ecosystem of ownership, including resale values and brand perception. If trust weakens, the ripple effects can challenge the very exclusivity that sustains the brand's position in the market. Prestige, once questioned, is difficult to restore. Now Bugatti stands at a crossroads. One path involves adaptation, embracing a more open approach, supporting independent work, and rebuilding trust through transparency and flexibility. The other path is resistance, maintaining strict control and accepting the potential loss of buyers who are no longer willing to operate within those constraints. Neither choice is simple, but the outcome will shape the future of the brand. Because ultimately, this moment isn't just about one rebuild or one delayed response. It's about a broader shift in what luxury means in the modern era. Today's buyers expect not just exceptional products, but exceptional relationships. And in a world where information is immediate and permanent, the brands that succeed will be the ones that understand a simple truth. Control may protect a system, but trust is what sustains it. What we're seeing right now in the hypercar world isn't just controversy, it's a shift. A slow but undeniable shift in how people perceive ownership at the highest level of the automotive market. And at the center of that shift is Bugatti, a brand that has built its identity on exclusivity, engineering perfection, and absolute control. But that same control, once seen as part of its prestige, is now being questioned in a way that's starting to affect real buying decisions. Because something changed. Not overnight, not from a single event, but from a series of moments that, when viewed together, paint a very different picture of what ownership actually looks like. When Matt Armstrong began documenting his rebuild journey, what started as a technical challenge quickly turned into something bigger. It became a public test of how far a manufacturer is willing to support or restrict independent work. And when McCann shared his own experience trying to get basic information and support, the pattern became harder to ignore. Individually, these could have been dismissed. A one-off situation, a misunderstanding. But together, they created something far more powerful, a narrative. A narrative that is now being watched, analyzed, and discussed by the exact audience. Bugatti depends on the ultra-wealthy buyers who don't just purchase cars, but invest in experiences, relationships, and long-term confidence. And that's where the real issue begins. Because at this level, people are not buying on impulse. No one casually spends $3 to $5 million on a hypercar. These decisions are calculated, researched, and often influenced by conversations behind closed doors between collectors, investors, and owners who share information most people never hear. They look beyond the surface. They ask what happens after delivery. They ask what happens when something goes wrong. And right now, the answers they're finding are not reassuring. Search for ownership experiences, and you don't just find polished marketing or controlled press releases. You find real-world documentation. You find videos showing parts being refused, communication delays stretching for weeks, and policies that limit what owners can and cannot do with something they fully paid for. That changes the equation entirely, because suddenly, ownership doesn't feel like freedom. It feels conditional. The concern isn't about the purchase price. For someone in this market, the cost is already accounted for. What matters is everything that comes after. What happens if the car is damaged? Can it be repaired outside the manufacturer's network? What if parts are needed? Will they be supplied or withheld? What if the owner wants to modify the vehicle, personalize it, push it beyond factory limitations? And perhaps most importantly, what happens if support is needed in a place where official service centers aren't accessible? These are not small concerns. They go to the core of ownership. Because hypercars are not like ordinary vehicles. They are complex, highly specialized machines that require expertise, precision, and often direct manufacturer involvement. But there is a difference between support and control. Support gives confidence. Control removes options. And what many buyers are starting to realize is that the balance may have shifted too far in one direction. The structure being presented is clear. Follow the official process, use approved channels, accept the pricing, and operate within defined boundaries or risk losing access entirely. And for a product that costs millions, that kind of limitation starts to feel less like luxury and more like restriction. This is where the tension escalates. Because while Bugatti maintains its position, the rest of the market is evolving. Other manufacturers are approaching ownership differently. Brands like Koenigsegg have built reputations not just on performance but on engagement. The presence of Christian von Koenigsegg himself, interacting with owners, supporting innovation, and embracing customization creates a completely different dynamic. It's not just about the car, it's about the relationship behind it. Similarly, Pagani has cultivated an ownership experience that feels personal, collaborative, and open to interpretation. Their approach reinforces exclusivity without restricting the owner's sense of control. Customers are not just buyers, they are participants in the process. And when buyers begin comparing not just performance but experience, the gap becomes noticeable. Because in pure engineering terms, the differences are narrowing. Multiple manufacturers are now capable of delivering extraordinary performance, cutting-edge technology, and breathtaking design. The competitive edge is no longer just in the product, it's in the ownership experience that surrounds it. This is where perception starts to shift. Prestige is not a fixed asset. It's something that must be maintained, reinforced, and protected over time. And in the digital era, perception is shaped not by controlled messaging, but by visible, shareable experiences. When millions of people watch real situations unfold uncut, unfiltered, and documented, it creates a form of transparency that traditional branding cannot easily counter. That's exactly what's happening here. The content produced by creators like Armstrong and McCann isn't just entertainment, it's evidence. It's a permanent record of how situations were handled, how responses were given or not given, and how systems operate under pressure. And because this content reaches millions, it doesn't stay within enthusiast circles. It reaches potential buyers. It influences perception at scale. That creates a new kind of pressure. In the past, brands controlled their narrative. Access was limited. Information flowed through approved channels. But now, the narrative is decentralized. It exists across platforms, shaped by multiple voices and reinforced through repetition. Once a perception takes hold, it becomes incredibly difficult to reverse. And this is where the financial implications begin to emerge. Bugatti's business model relies on high margins and limited production. Each unit sold carries significant weight. This isn't a volume-driven market, it's a precision model where every sale contributes heavily to overall sustainability. That means even a small shift in demand can have a disproportionate impact. If confidence declines, even slightly, it affects more than just new orders. It affects resale values. It affects investor perception. It affects the willingness of current owners to remain within the brand ecosystem. Because if future buyers hesitate, secondary markets respond. And when secondary markets weaken, it creates a ripple effect that challenges the very foundation of exclusivity. Lower confidence leads to lower demand. Lower demand affects value retention. Reduced value retention makes new purchases less attractive. And over time, that cycle begins to compound. This is not an immediate collapse. It's a gradual erosion. And the question now is whether that erosion can be reversed. There are paths forward. One approach would involve adaptation, acknowledging the concerns, adjusting policies, and creating a more balanced relationship between control and support. Aligning with broader industry movements, including right-to-repair discussions, could reposition the brand as responsive rather than resistant. It would signal that customer experience matters as much as engineering precision. But that path requires something difficult: change. The alternative is to maintain the current structure, to continue prioritizing control, consistency, and internal standards above all else. That approach preserves the system as it exists, but it also risks accelerating the very concerns that are now emerging, because ultimately, the market decides. Buyers will choose not just based on what a car is, but on what it represents. And if ownership begins to feel restrictive rather than empowering, they will look elsewhere, not because the product isn't exceptional, but because the experience no longer aligns with their expectations. This is the turning point. The hypercar market is evolving, and with it, the definition of luxury itself. It's no longer just about exclusivity or performance. It's about transparency, flexibility, and trust. The brands that recognize this shift and adapt to it will continue to lead. The ones that resist may find themselves facing a reality they didn't anticipate. Because in the end, no matter how advanced the engineering is, no matter how rare the product becomes, one thing remains constant: Ownership is not just about what you buy, it's about what you're allowed to do with it after.